Thanks for checking out College Volleyball Weekly on volleyballmag.com, powered by P1440.
Rob Espero here. Be sure to check out volleyballmag.com, powered by P1440, for all the latest news, schedules, and updates in NCAA Division 1-2 men's volleyball. Also, be sure to follow them on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. That's all the hottest men's volleyball news over at volleyballmag.com, powered by P1440. All right, we're here, the College Volleyball Weekly, episode 8. We got our Consortium of College Intelligence, or Coaching Intelligence. That's Dan Friend of Lewis University on the left and Jay Hosack of George Mason on the right. After 8 full weeks of NCAA Division 1 and 2 men's volleyball, things are really shaping up, or are they? Because there's so many things happening in each conference. Let's start off. I've called this little segment Conference Craziness. First off, Conference Carolinas, Barton and King, which we'll talk about later, but they're undefeated in their conference. But let's jump into the MEVA, Dan's home. What's happening in the MEVA here?
Well, I think you saw ultimately Purdue Fort Wayne got back on track. They had a couple nice wins at home. They played Ball State and got those guys in 4. And then they played Ohio State on Saturday and won that as well in 4, and really just were steady both nights. I think Pellegrin hit over 300, had 15 kills one night, 17 the other night. The team hit over 330 both matches, and I think they just got into a nice groove in both those matches. And then you saw Ball State ultimately had the tough loss of Purdue, but then went to Loyola and won for the first time since 1999 it is.
Wow.
And certainly had some significant guys with some numbers. Blake had 25 kills, 15 digs. Caleb Ginnis had 23 kills. Their setter had 67 assists. The team hit 356, and took a pretty good night for them to get that 400th win for Coach Walton and his Cardinals at the same time. So I thought we had a couple nice wins. We're trying to get better at home as well, and got Quincy, who was coming off an upset. Purdue, and we got Lindenwood, who certainly won their 2 home games. And so, Lindenwood, though, went to McHenry for us, and you saw McHenry beat them in 4, and McHenry kind of get back on track as well. And they're actually without their setter. I think Serrano got hurt.
Okay.
I think he rolled his ankle by serving when he drug his foot. I'd have to go watch the film, you know what I mean? So, but they got back on track. So I think, ultimately, we go to Purdue on Thursday, so that'll be a big match. Purdue's undefeated at home, and we're going on the road, and we're sitting a little bit ahead, but I think there's a lot of mumble jumble in the middle of the whole conference. I think I said this before. Whoever ends up winning conference is probably going to end up with 3-4 losses at least, maybe more. I think it's gonna get pretty gnarly as we get into the season as well. So.
I like it. Well, there's obviously, you guys are in first, Lindenwood second, but you have that logjam of PFW, McKendree, and Loyola. But man, talk about some potent bottom teams there between Ohio State and Ball State. You just don't know what you're going to get come tournament time. So, but still a lot of season left. But it's interesting the way that the dynamic of the MEVA is shaping right now.
Yeah. I think health will play a lot into that. Who stays healthy and who? Yeah, I think that'll be a big piece as usual. So Jay can vouch for that. You know what I mean? So.
Well, that's a great segue into the J segment of the EIVA, because in that conference you got Penn State undefeated, and then Princeton in second. But you have the outliers in your team, the Patriots, Harvard, and NJIT is one of the most potent teams that we've seen early on in the preseason. What's happening in the EIVA, Jay?
I think when you look at our conference from top to bottom, I think there were some some teams that stood out in the beginning of the year. I think Princeton and Penn State being those 2 teams that most people thought were going to be a shoe-in or a lock for the conference playoffs. And then there were 3 or 4 teams, Mason, obviously, NJIT, and Harvard and St. Francis, that people were thinking, hey, those teams could make a run for the next 2 playoff spots. And then, people thought Charleston this year was going to be a team to watch out for. And they maybe not have panned out as much as everyone had hoped in terms of the win-loss record right now, but they're still a dangerous team, and they can play spoiler for a couple of programs. They still played just about everybody once, at least for the rest of the year. And we're the only conference that takes only half of its members. Everybody else gets to take everybody in. And so you although you're all playing for seeding, because you want to host, the fact remains is that I think only one team out of the MEBA doesn't make it, and everybody else has got to be, pretty secure in that. So for us, it's all about trying to get that top 4 spot. And we had a couple of matches this weekend. I thought we played really well against NJIT, and we beat them in 4. And then Princeton came in, and we lose the first game, and then we're up 21-17 in the second. And the next thing I know, I blinked and we lost 26-28. Had things panned out the way they're maybe supposed to, I think maybe we go 5 and then it's anyone's game. And so for us to play that well against a good team like Princeton, who's beaten some pretty big boys across the country, that says, well, it says some good things about us. But Sacred Heart goes up 2-0 on Penn State, and Penn State had to fight in order to come back. This is one of those years where we've talked about the top 2 teams in Hawaii and BYU, but everybody else can beat everybody else at any given moment. And, had Sacred Heart done a couple of different things, maybe in games 3 or 4, they might have been able to pull that win out. And then we'd all be talking about Penn State losing to Sacred Heart for the first time in, 40 years. I don't even know how long it's been since they've won. So yeah, it's getting crazier, and we're in the middle of our conference. Big West hasn't even started conference play yet, except San Diego and Irvine playing twice. That's it.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna have both
that
you guys.
segue.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I was gonna say our 2 remaining conferences have the only 2 unbeaten teams in the nation. We'll start with the MPSF and have both you guys chime in on it. BYU at 4-0, but here's the shocker: Grand Canyon in second place in that conference with the 4-1 record or 3-1 record. Talk about what you guys know about the MPSF right now.
Well, I think you saw Grand Canyon get a nice win against Pep, as well as UCLA, right? You know what I mean? So It wasn't that bad. So I think certainly Grand Canyon, made a nice step. I think you're 4-1's right with that win yesterday, right. Rob, for Grand Canyon. So, and Pep's now at 3-2, and so. And I think it's great. I think you talk about anybody can beat anybody, but I think Camden Gianni has been pretty darn good for Grand Canyon this year, and is doing some nice things along with Janke. So they've got 2 pins that are pretty formidable and doing some nice things. I still think Pep's got some young guys, and they're in that up and down mode as well. They can certainly play with anybody, and then they can certainly, make the errors to open the door for teams. And so, and then we know that with UCLA right now. UCLA has certainly been up and down, and it's always funny to read all the speculators with UCLA. I think
I love that you're addressing that. Please do go into detail.
I just think Coach Sproul is trying to find the best mixture of his players. Do you know what I mean? And he's the one that knows best what those guys can do and what they can't do, and they're trying to figure it out. And I think they'll get better as the year goes on in terms of that stuff. And so, but yeah, I think BYU is separated from everybody else, but it'll be interesting. And what's up with the Big West? Why can't they start conference play a little bit sooner? Do you know any reason on this? This is ridiculous. Like, start somewhat at the same time as everybody else. Do you know what I mean? So you're not doing all your league stuff later.
Well, listen, you know why they only do that? They only have 6 teams, so they've got 10 conference matches only. So I mean, you got to fill up those weekends. That's only 5 weekends. If you get a dual match weekend with everybody in conference, 5 weekends, that's 1 month and 1 week. That's it. So that's why they haven't done that yet. But yeah,
we're
all kind of in the middle of it.
After Jay does his take on the MPSF.
I agree with Dan 100%. I think, you look at teams below BYU, and I think Grand Canyon's starting to separate themselves from everybody else. They've got a real nice rhythm right now. He's absolutely right. Gianni and Janke are 2-headed monster for them. That's doing a real nice job of keeping them, above the fray, so to speak. Concordia is going to be a team that I think is going to be dangerous too down the line. They might play spoiler to a couple of teams. Stanford, I think right now is trying to figure out whether or not Litsky's going to be the kid. If he can stay healthy, knock on wood somewhere for that kid, because Stanford seems to be in the same boat that we are. But, the UCLA thing, I think Dan touched upon it. Everybody questioning what Sproul's doing, and, why isn't he playing these kids, or why isn't he doing this? Who cares? It's his program. You can have all those fun conversations, but the reality is, when you own a program someday, you could do with it what you want to do. And John obviously sees something in these young guys, and he's giving them a shot. And maybe he is building for the future. That's the big talk. Everybody say, "Whoa, he's building for the future." Maybe. And if he is, then more power to him. But I think BYU right now is the team to beat. And if they're at home during the playoffs, that's a really tough place to play. It's going to be a huge in their favor for that.
Yeah. The only thing I'll have to add is Kevin and Gianni of Grand Canyon. Just think of it, just over a year and a half ago today, the guy had fallen and had major heart surgery.
Yeah.
And he's the guy that's leading the team.
Yeah.
Also for BYU, just some notes. There is it Oberender is now starting. Brandon Oberender with Felipe de Brito Ferreira going down against Grand
Say that
Canyon.
5 times fast.
Yes. But, this is the thing. With the personnel that's stepping in for BYU, they are almost as strong as they are with those guys. Even Alex Asu, the backup opposite for Gabby Garcia Fernandez, it's shown that the Cougars are deep, and that's going to be a hard team to beat come when it counts time towards the end of the season.
Yep.
Let's jump into the Big West, the conference that hasn't really begun yet. But some great things are happening there at the
Except for you. I'm sorry, Rob. I'm really sorry, buddy.
Except for you, Robbie. Or up there, over there. I don't know where you are.
Alluding to UC San Diego defeating my team twice this year already to go 2-0 in Big West Conference play. It's the only conference match that's happened, but obviously you've seen a lot of Kevin Ring and UCSC's up until this time in the season. What are your guys' assessment of this Kevin Ring team?
He's got money. He can finally recruit kids that are worthy of being in other programs, and now he can compete with them by offering them some scholarship money. That's what happens when your administration supports your team the way it's supposed to be. And forever, they have been competing, on a champagne level with a beer budget. And so now all of a sudden, they got some kids that can ball. They got some confidence going into these things. They can actually recruit for the future. So kids are excited to come there. That's a big deal right there. So it's no surprise to anybody who knows Kevin and knows that program. They forever have just been the little sister to everybody else in the Big West and the MPSF back in the day when it was a bigger conference. But you know what? He does a nice job, and that school is going to get better for it. So kudos to Kevin Ring.
Well, he's got Kyle McCauley. Kyle McCauley. I have to tell you, he's always had good pieces. He's got an older group now. He's got an older setter, but he's got Kyle McCauley. Kyle McCauley has raised the level of that team and created more opportunities for other talented players on that team. Makes Wyatt's job easier. It certainly makes Connor Walbright's job. I just think you're seeing an All-American. Kyle's an All-American, do you know what I mean? And you're going to see that at the end of the year, and he raises that level of that team to compete, and the guy goes after it. So certainly when you have a guy like that on your team that makes you better, it elevates everything.
Yeah. Well, they've got a pretty talented group of pins there, and Colin Shannon, Wyatt Harrison, and of course Kyle McCauley. And OCC coach Travis Turner loves it when I drop his name on here all the time. But even Coach Charlie Brand, his club coach at Balboa Bay Club, has said he's really come into where he's at now. He started out as the guy that played behind everyone, but he's really elevated his play to a point where he is the leader and is the go-to guy now. So good for him and the UCSD program. I'm still honestly trying to get an assessment on where Long Beach State is at. They've got some wins. They got a loss to UCLA, but they played Westcliff University right down the street here in Irvine. And I'm trying to figure what their lineup's going to look like and if they're the real deal.
Well, first of all, let's talk about Westcliff for a second. It's in a building. It's not even the entire building. It's a floor in a building right down the street from the In-N-Out Burger by UC Irvine. So
no problem with that.
Yeah. And secondly, they have a collegiate surf team. How cool is that? So let's had I been going to school back in the day, I might actually look at that school and go, can I be a dual sport athlete and be on the surf team and be on the volleyball team? How fun would that be? But you're right about Long Beach. Long Beach has played some good people, but they haven't really gotten to the meat of their schedule yet. And it'll be interesting to see all that work that they put in so far. Will it be able to pan out? Because obviously Santa Barbara is a gnarly beast right now. They're still just dominating people after night. Hawaii, they haven't seen yet. That's going to be a big match. And so, when you get to and Irvine, you never know if they're going to figure it out sooner or later. But what about San Diego when they see Long Beach State? It's going to be exciting to watch because you're going to see these traditional powerhouses all of a sudden be up against it, and San Diego could end up winning the whole thing. How cool would that be? That'd be a great story.
Anything to add, Dan?
No, I'm eager to them start conference play. I mean, we're going to talk about some matches of the week, and I think Long Beach is going to play UCLA, and that'll be a rematch of their one loss. You know what I mean? And it's at UCLA, and I think it'll be interesting to see as Long Beach gets into conference play. And they're similar teams. So like you look at UCSD and Santa Barbara, they're similar to Long Beach. You know, they're not huge physical teams, very talented athletic players on all these teams. Play some similar styles in terms of defense and high offense efficiency stuff. And so it's like, you know, I think when some of those matches get going, it'll be interesting. Where Hawaii's built a little bit different. UCI is built a little bit different, a little bit more physical teams. And so it'll be interesting as those three teams play off and how that rolls out. Because I think UCSD is going to come out with some wins against those teams. So,
and it'll be exciting to talk about when that happens.
Yeah, it will be.
All right, let's jump over to our other segment, our top performers of Week 8. Pick one or two. We'll start. Jay's taking the reins.
Last week, so I get to go first this week.
Oh.
So, but I won't steal his guy, just so you know. You know what I mean? So I got two. I got Evan Corey from Lincoln Memorial. They came out with 2 wins, and that guy's a stud. He's also a stud beach player, just so everybody knows, and he's from Louisiana. So a pretty talented kid from an area that doesn't have a ton of volleyball. But first night, I think he had 24 kills, hit 391, 14 digs. The next match, 23 kills at 409, 14 digs. So he's got 2 double-doubles. So that's pretty remarkable just in terms of some numbers. And then my other guy is Blake, helping Ball State get that first win at Loyola since 1999 with 25 kills, hitting 500 or 558 with 15 digs. So those are the 2 guys. So
Excellent.
I've got 2 that I'll mention, but I'm making a call right here, right now. You ready for this? Kevin Ring, Coach of the Year. That's my call. All right, here we go.
Already though, MPSF. He's got to get Big West one now.
Right, exactly. All right, my 2. I'm going to go with Camden Gianni from Grand Canyon with the 2 big wins over Pepperdine UCLA this weekend. The kid hits 350 versus Pepperdine and 467 against UCLA. It's a big deal. Again, Rob, you mentioned earlier, a year ago, kid's in the hospital. Now he's all of a sudden crushing people left and right. The other one I'll mention just briefly is Christian Janke. Dan talked about him earlier. The kid hit 400 versus Pep and 250 versus UCLA. These 2 kids on a team that, you know, we talk about Macaulay and Wyatt and those guys at San Diego. Those are 2 kids at Grand Canyon that they can lean on a little bit, and they're producing in high numbers. So those are my players of the week.
Great call by both you guys, because as a non-coach here in this group of people, I'm going to jump in the backpack of great ones. You already selected the guys I would have, but I'm going to go on the fringe and pick a setter as a former setter myself. Quinn Isaacson of Ball State had a double-double against their win over Loyola, 67 assists and 11 digs. Wow. So great performance by the Ball State setter. Let's jump over now to our top matches for Week 9. I think we'll go with Dan, because he looks really ready over there in his office with all those ABCA awards hanging behind him.
I got to make sure that I make a shout out to my middle, TJ Murray. He said that I needed to talk about him on this show.
Because Tyler Mitchum's the one that had the error-free performance the other night, not TJ.
Tyler did hit like 700 or something. I have no idea. But TJ wanted to make sure I brought it up. So TJ, I hope you're doing good this morning, and I'm sure I'll see you later today. So, but
I'll tag that in the Instagram post as well, so he can hear it and it'll go viral.
Nice. But my 2 matches, I want to see Grand Canyon, UC Irvine. I want to see how your Anteaters bounce back, or if they do bounce back on this next match coming up. And then my next one is the Long Beach UCLA rematch, and how that goes. You know, we're talking about, you know, Long Beach being challenged and UCLA learning to play better, and ultimately UCLA won the first. So that'll be my other match I want to see.
Great.
Yeah, those are good calls. I'm going to be watching Harvard versus NJIT and Princeton this weekend. Harvard is tied with us for 3rd and 4th place. Basically, we're both in the last 2 spots for the playoffs. Princeton Harvard match is always fun to watch, and it's an Ivy League grudge match of wicked smart and super smart guys, and they're both very good teams this year. But NJIT is the team that I think is going to play a little bit of an upset here and there. They're only 1-3 in conference right now, but they are a good team. And as soon as they start to figure it out and they close the deal, they're going to be dangerous. So I'll be watching that. I'm also going to be watching my boys. And when I say my boys, I mean my UC Santa Cruz Banana Slugs. What's up, Sluggies? Playing San Diego this weekend. So go out there and get a little win if you can for the old guy. And then I'm going to be watching King and Barton, the 2 undefeateds remaining in Conference Carolinas. Barton obviously having the Mandalaris kid, the opposite, who's crushing people left and right. And King's got a kid named Julian Young on the right side that's their leader as well. 2 right sides battling it out to see who's going to come out on top for the Conference Carolinas for the time being. That's going to be a fun match to watch.
All right, because again, the coaches know what they're talking about. I only have one match I'll be watching, and I know Dan probably didn't mention it because it's the battle for Chicago. Loyola at Lewis. Who's the better Chicago team? Always great rivalry matchups because it always brings out the best in the competition because we know there's so much love right there between the two guys, the two teams.
Meva Megadon or whatever, off the block, Vinny calls it, or so many years or whatever that is.
Yeah. So with that, that concludes episode 8 of College Volleyball Weekly. We've got our consortium of coaching intelligence, Dan Brandon Lewis, and Jay Hosack of George Mason. He took on the name of the university because he's so great. But hey, thanks again, you guys. Looking for another exciting week of ball, and always great to talk with y'all.
All right, thanks.
Thanks for checking out College Volleyball Weekly on volleyballmag.com, powered by P1440. Be sure to follow volleyballmag.com on the web and social media.